since 1966.
This is NBC4's News Conference with Conan Nolan, Southern California's longest-running public affairs program.
On this edition of News Conference, high expectations as another school year gets underway. At LA Unified, there's optimism and worry. Following an acrimonious teacher strike, the devastating rejection by voters over a property tax hike, with the district now headed for a fiscal cliff. We talk with Superintendent Beutner about that and the idea of helping parents by offering a rating system for elementary and high school performance. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker on his campaign for president. We sit down to discuss gun control, Joe Biden, the California primary, and his prediction of a breakout win in Iowa. And we talk with perhaps the most hated member of the California state legislature, State Senator Richard Pan, a medical doctor who's been subjected to death threats, racial slurs, even pushed in the back this week by someone angered over his legislation designed to increase mandatory vaccinations of California's children. Good morning and welcome to the Tom Brokaw News Center here at Universal City. I'm Conan Nolan. In a moment, Senator Cory Booker on his race for president and California State Senator Richard Pan and the controversy surrounding his childhood vaccination bill. But first, Beutner, the superintendent of the Los Angeles Unified School District outside of New York, the largest in the nation. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So back to school this week. It's sort of like opening day of baseball. You know, all things are possible. You can finish first. Where do you stand on the school year as you start looking ahead?
Well, so first, it's exciting to start a new school year because the doors of opportunity open for every one of our 700,000 students. Let's reflect a little bit on the year past and the year ahead. The year past, everything we could measure went in the right direction. Test scores went up. Highest number of English learners became proficient in English since the state started keeping records. Double the number of students taking SATs, record high graduation, record low suspensions, a decrease in chronic absenteeism. Now, we want to do better than that. We can do better. We want to accelerate the pace of progress, but we're starting from a foundation of a lot of things are going in the right direction. We want to keep that going.
Enrollment up or down?
Enrollment down less than prior years, but because of birth rate, because of the cost of living, we're a declining enrollment school district.
What's the fiscal health of the district?
Hasn't changed much in that we have reserves. We have savings to get us through the next year or two. After that, we're looking at a real imbalance between what we get each year from the state and what we need to pay to keep things going as they are.
This is the first time you've been on since you lost the ballot measure, the parcel tax increase, a property tax increase called Measure EE.
Right.
Why did that lose?
A variety of factors, but let's take a step back because the challenge or the opportunity still exists. In New York, they invest $29,000 a year per student. Los Angeles, we're asked to make do with 16. Now, those are just two numbers, but 29 is a lot more than 16. A second grader would know that. Over the life of a student's K-12 journey, that adds up to the cost of a teacher and the cost of an aide. So imagine the progress we would make if we took every third grader and said, Conan, this year you have your own teacher and your own aide. So that difference is substantial, and we have work to do to convince all of us we have a stake in public education to invest in.
You made that point repeatedly in the campaign, and it needed a 2/3 vote. You didn't even get a majority.
Right. Well, one of the challenges we have is to make sure we build trust. In February of this year and a decade ago, more people thought local schools were headed in the wrong direction than the right direction. So we have to build trust. We have to start with being more transparent in everything we do. In September, we'll publish for the first time a document which shows where every nickel goes. We will explain, for instance, that we spend $12 million each year to provide music instruction, $39 a student in elementary schools. And we'll explain if we want to do it for every student, how much more it might cost. We'll explain we know what clean schools look like, and we're only investing about half the money we need because we're short on funds. So more transparency will help. And I think telling the story of where we're making progress. As I said, each day the doors of opportunity open in our schools and extraordinary things are happening.
Still, though, you had a vote on a tax increase for schools months after the union said the school district is lying to you on finances, saying the superintendent's lying to you on finances. I know a little bit about political campaigns, and one of which is that you've got to stay on the same message. You had a different message.
Well, our message was the same.
Your message was the same, but
which is we need to invest more, and I think we have to bring everyone along. More than half those who work in the school district didn't vote. 84% of those who could vote did not vote. And if public education is the foundation on which we stand, I give lots of talks about public education and listen to folks in the community. I always ask, who's a product of public education. Most of the hands in the room are raised. So we all have a stake in this, and we have work to do to convince people that stake is very real, and sometimes you have to make that investment.
And that work is in a ballot measure perhaps for next year, split roll, that is reforming Proposition 13, so we increase taxes on commercial property, and that revenue, billions, would go to schools.
It may be at the state level. It may be at the local level. We're still doing work.
You're thinking about going back to the ballot?
Well, one way or the other, the way funding is provided to school districts like ours is at the state level in California. That's where our money comes from, at the state level. So change, if it needs to happen, and I believe it should, if 16,000 should get a lot closer to 29, we have to have a conversation statewide about the need to invest in education.
Let's talk about a few other things. There is an effort to inform the parents about the quality of their elementary and high school based on a grade level, 1 through 5. The LA Times editorial board had a problem with that, I saw. What is the goal here? What are you trying to do?
So the initiative predates me, and let's separate two parts. There's an alphanumeric label of some sort, and then there's more information than is provided in the state dashboard. I don't think labeling, I don't think the alphanumeric approach gets us anywhere, but I do believe there's a lot more value in more information at a school. And
what?
I'll contrast, for instance, on the state dashboard, they show change. So a school 1 year versus a school the next year. But of 100 kids entering our kindergarten, less than half will finish at the same 5th grade. We have a transient population. So if you're just comparing a school to a school when the students have changed, how relevant is that information?
Right,
so
but what is the information that you're trying to get to the parents?
We're trying
Test
to help.
scores?
We're trying to help them understand, and those who lead our schools help them understand, are we making progress with the students that we're working with in that school? And the state dashboard doesn't get us far enough. So there's more information to be had. The actual ranking of it, I don't see the value in that, but informing those in a school community, in particular those who work in the school, about where progress is being made or where the opportunities are is very, very valuable.
And finally, polls indicate that the biggest concern people have about education right now is the safety of the school. Mm-hmm. The city attorney, for example, last year had a Blue Ribbon Commission on school safety. He had 33 recommendations. One of them pertains to active shooters. So what has the district done to prepare itself for what could be, we don't want it to be an inevitability, but we've seen what's happened across the country?
Well, first, we hope and pray it will never happen here in Los Angeles, and we've been very fortunate so far. But we train, we have lockdown training for each of our schools, we have contingency plans in place, we actually invest in the largest school police system in the country. So we're very, very engaged in making sure all of our schools are safe and welcome, and not just from a lunatic who might bring a weapon into a school, but also culturally. You know, we live in an environment where there are constant threats for the communities we serve from other factors, immigration authorities and otherwise. And our schools are the safest place in the community. Everyone is welcome, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure children are safe and families are welcome in our schools.
Austin Beutner is the superintendent of Los Angeles Unified. Good luck.
Thank you.
Up next, presidential candidate Cory Booker when we return.